Hello and welcome to another episode of Bones Wargaming, a show with no bells, no whistles, no frills, just a man, a camera, and his game. This episode, yes, I'm back after a bit of a hiatus because, of course, I told you guys I wouldn't be doing a whole lot of videos, but I am back. And this time I'm showing you a game that is a prototype. It is a game that, to give you a little background, last October I was doing a Civil War wave. I turned 50 last year, so for my 50th birthday I went ahead and went up to Antietam for the first time since 2004, and just went by myself, enjoyed the weekend, walked around the battlefield, hired a guide for a 4-hour personal guided tour around the battlefield and the environs, which was very cool. Learned quite a few new things. I also got to see the North Bridge, which most people don't know exactly where that is, so that's kind of cool. Everybody knows about the Middle Bridge and, of course, Burnside's Bridge, but the North Bridge is a little different animal. And while that was going on, and while I was mentioning things to people and discussing on Board Game Geek, somebody that's a member, he goes by the name of L. Pinker, he mentioned that he was working on a grand strategy game for the Civil War. And of course, I'm always on the lookout for grand strategy games that, quite frankly, as I get older, I've kind of fallen more into the games that give me a good feel for things without too much detail, too many pieces, all that kind of stuff. So when I mentioned, about it, he mentioned it and asked if anybody was interested in playtesting it, trying it out. I said, sure. I said, I'll give it a whirl. So he sent me what you see in front of you here. He sent me a nice kit, very well done. I'm not sure exactly what else to say about it, except it was, I've also done some playtesting before, a few other games and stuff, but this is a very beautiful copy of a playtest game that I received. Now, he has made some changes to the games based on some of my feedback. He and I discussing certain aspects and things, so I will mention some of those changes. I will mention other things, but finally I got a copy of it early this year in March, because it took him a little time to kind of tweak things, get things to where exactly he wanted them before he shipped it off to me. And I have to admit, right out of the gate, I was very pleased, very impressed with it. So I want to share with you guys how the game works, because I did tell him that, if you let me play test it, you let me mess around with it and stuff, I'll, do a playthrough on my channel. So now I feel comfortable enough that I can go ahead and do that. Plus, I'm headed back for a new Civil War phase after just departing the Western Front of World War II, 44-45. I played a bunch of games on that, including almost all the Paul Coney games. If you know those from Victory Games, I did that. So this game tentatively is called And the War Came, which is a quote from Abraham Lincoln. And it's a game that has, as you can see, block elements, area movement. It has some cards involved. It has a very familiar battle approach. We'll get into all that here as we do each turn. But it's also a game that gives a lot of options. It's a game that has a heavy emphasis on leadership, which I'll explain here as we talk about some leaders here in a little bit. So it is very, very cool. In my personal opinion, I have really enjoyed it. And as you guys know, as longtime viewers of I'm not afraid of giving my opinion about stuff. If I don't like something, you'll know about it. If I don't like something because I think it doesn't work or it doesn't represent history, I will let you know about it. I also will let you know if it isn't my cup of tea. Not that the game maybe is bad or broken or anything, but if it ain't, ain't for me, not a big deal. Okay, so let's get into the game here. Now, each game turn begins by each side getting a set of cards. Now, the cards are determined by the season. So let me zoom in here, and I'll show you the turn record track here at the bottom of the map. As you can see, I've already done 1861. I've moved into the winter of 1862. As you can see here, it gives the basic resource points for each side, and then also tells you, if you want to follow the historical path, what leaders will then come on the scene. Now, I have to admit, right now I'm playing with the optional just randomly draw leaders thing because I wanted to. Again, those of you longtime watchers know that I enjoy what if stuff, so, and that's what I'm doing right now. So in this particular turn, we get only one card in the winter. And you can see the spring, a little more activity with 2. Summer, of course, is the best. And then fall, you get a few more, and then you move on to the next turn. This game does come with scenarios for 1862, 63, and I believe 64 as well, too. I'm not a big scenario guy. I usually play, if I'm going to play a grand strategy game, I usually go whole hog from the get-go and play it out as far as I want to. So this one I started in 1861. And actually there's an 1861 scenario too. And I'm running my way towards the election, because one of the victory condition things deals with the 1864 election, because basically if Lincoln doesn't get reelected, there could be some issues, as those of you who are students of the ACW know. Okay? Alright, so we're going to start here. Both sides are only going to get one card. And that, of course, will work out well for our demonstration purposes here. Now, when I play solo, I roll a die for each side to see who's going to get the first card, who gets the second card. And, of course, what did I do? I rolled a pair of 6s. Boxcars! So, let's try again. And this time, okay, the Union got a 6, and the Rebs got a 4. So, each side will get one card. And the cards are basically used mostly to move units. Now, some cards, as you can see here from this one that I drew, for my side, and of course for the solo side, like if there's, say, the 3 cards in the summer seasonal turn, I go ahead and randomly decide which one of those 3 cards the Confederacy will play. And I always play the Union, because I grew up in Pennsylvania, which is the state that contributed the most soldiers to the Union war effort, by the way. So I'm always a Union man. Okay? But as you can see here, this card, you have 2 options. You can either play an event as well as, play an event as well as 2 operations, or if you don't want to, you can just issue 3 orders. Now, orders will allow you to move units around, also to promote leaders. You can promote each of your leaders, but you can only promote them 1 rank on a turn. No more than that. Okay? So, you kind of have to keep that in mind, that you can't just rapidly promote people. It's going to take some time to get them up to higher levels so they can command more and more units. And of course, as each one of the leaders gets promoted, they can of course command more units, and eventually there are some armies in the game, which of course we will talk about here as we go through this. Right? Alright, so there's my card. I've got my 1 card. The Confederate card I'll keep secret until I'm ready to actually play the turn. Now, the next thing is to determine the total resources points. So the total resources points, you're going to take a die for each side, and you're going to roll it and add to the number I just showed you on the turn record chart, which for the U.S. is 6, and the CSA is 3. So, Confederates, bad luck. They only got a 1. So they're only going to get 4 resource points, and the Union actually is going to get 12, the polar opposite. So right off the bat, the beginning of 1862 is looking like a pretty happy new year for the Unionists. Okay? Now, once you've done that, then you can go ahead and recruit your new units and then place your new generals that you receive. Now, again, for purposes of playing solo, I always roll a die to find out which side is going to have to make their decision first. Okay, Union rolled a 2, Confederacy rolled a 4, so the Union is going to have to go first. Now, when you recruit your units, this is kind of like Axis and Allies. When you recruit your troops, you can't place them until the end of the turn. But an interesting thing about this is that when you recruit your forces, you can either put them into the game as brand new blocks, like these guys up here near Columbus, or, so long as you have a valid line of supply, and this also includes into enemy territory that you've conquered, you can take the blocks, let's say 4 steps worth, and you can reinforce blocks. So like if you fight a battle down here in Kentucky, you can go ahead and reinforce this block so long as you have a valid line of supply. Same thing down here. As you can see, I kind of jumped the gun on the spring of 1862 when Burnside landed in coastal North Carolina. I did that right away because I drew Meade early, and of course Meade has a a good leadership quality, so I went ahead and used him quickly to kind of land down here and start to wear down the Confederacy. So you can use it so long as you can trace Valence supply, you can reinforce your forces. So even up here right now, the Confederate Army of Tennessee has invaded southern Illinois. I can still go ahead and send troops up to them. So it's kind of cool because when you recruit your units, you can go ahead and you can put them on your area, your playmat and stuff to deploy later, but your opponent doesn't know exactly where they're going to go right off the bat. Okay, so because they could go to reinforce stuff, or you could put a brand new unit down. All right, we'll talk more about that when we place them later. So first of all, let me go ahead and I can recruit new units. Now there are 3 types of units in the game for each side. There are, and let me go ahead here and I'll just tell you what, I'll just do this over here real quick. So hold on tight, I'm going to move y'all over to here. Whoops. That got pushed over, but okay. And let me zoom in on these 3 Union units down here on the battle board. And you've basically got 3 types of units that you can recruit. You can recruit infantry up to 4 steps. Each infantry unit has historical designations, so if you want to use the actual units that fought in the actual theaters, you can do that. You can just use them randomly. There are also fortress units, which you can use, and of course then there are also cavalry. Although the Union cannot build cavalry until, I believe, the fall turn of 1862, which of course represents the disparity in the organization of the cavalry forces between the 2 sides up to that point. So you can build any one of these units in however many steps that you want per unit, and again, you're going to hold on to them, and then you're going to place them on the map toward the end of the turn. So again, very much an Axis and Allies kind of thing going on there. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and build 12 steps total, which is a whole boatload of forces. And again, I can't build cavalry yet as the Union, but I also want to get some forts here. So I'm going to build a 3-step fort, and then I'm going to go ahead and just put over here on my playmat, I'm going to put down 9 steps of infantry to build this turn. Okay, and then the other thing I do is I get generals. Now, like I said, in this particular one here, I'm only going to get 1. Now, normally that would be Rosecrans, but I'm doing the random draw. So let's see who I get for my random draw. Oh, jeez. Holy for holies. Oh, this is disappointing. Okay. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, let me zoom in again here. So let me show you what the leaders are like. I fight Smith Siegel, huh? Okay. Now, as you can see here on the blocks that are leaders, first of all, you got a very cool portrait of the individual here involved. And, whoops, each one begins at the Brigadier General level of 1 star. Now, the letter is the combat ability of units. So you can use that letter to increase the skill of your units in the battle. Now, if the unit already matches, like infantry are already class C units as it is, then you don't get any benefit out of that. Now, if Siegel was a B leader at any point, then you could take 1 block in the battle and you could put it on the B level as I should say as a B class unit, and then the units get to fire based on their class from A to C. Combat, which we'll do a battle here as well. Combat, of course, is not simultaneous. You do have to take casualties if you get hit. We'll get more into that here a little bit later, but just so you know, having that advantage is big. So as you can see here, Siegel is not, Siegel is yikes, yikes, yikes. Okay. Now the 2 on the side there is the movement factor, so Siegel can move a unit with him 2 spaces. Now as you continue to rotate around the block here, okay, you can see on the right we have the 2 stars in the C and also the 3 stars on the C. Then you can command more units. Now if you get up to the 3-star level, which is Lieutenant General, then they have to command an army. Now there are only 5 armies in the game. The Rebs have 2, the Army of Tennessee and the Army of Northern Virginia, of course. And, of course, the Yankees have the Potomac, the Cumberland, and the Tennessee. All right? Now, the number, if you look there, you go 1 star at the top, and everybody starts at 1 star. And you have the C and you have the 0. The number there is the number of blocks that you can use to improve their combat ability. So, for example, if this said C1, then 1 combat unit with Seagull, only 1 if he's a brigadier general, you can only command 1 corps if you're at 1 star level, would be able to increase themselves from C to B. So in other words, you get to fight earlier in the round. So you can see Seagull's military ability here is not so hot. The +2, red at the bottom, deals with the Union war weariness track. If you decide to remove Seagull from command of units, then it will cost you on the war weariness track. Conversely, if the rebels remove leaders, then it actually helps the U.S. on the war weariness track. And that's a track that is used to help determine victory. We'll talk about it toward the end of the turn because that's when you have it there. Okay, so this is the one I drew, unfortunately, with Seagull. I can place him in any major city or minor city, or with a unit if I want, or not. However, if generals are left by themselves at the end of a battle or when the enemy moves in, then they are eliminated from the game. Okay. One thing I do want to mention about this before I put Seagull on the map is I do like how the designer used the system to reflect the skill abilities of leaders. So you can see here's good old John Bell Hood. And you can see at the 1 star level, he has an A ability. So he's able to take 1 block and bring it up to a Class A unit. That's pretty good. But notice he goes downhill the higher up he goes. 2 stars when he can command 1 or 2 blocks, 1 or 2 corps basically, because the basic units in the game are corps. Then his ability goes down. It's only a B. And then, of course, when he gets up to the 3 star level, and again, if you know anything about the ACW, you know Hood didn't make out so well when he got up to higher command, then he actually drops back to the C level. So I like that, how that's done and reflected with the system. Okay? So Hood, we'll deal with Hood here a little bit later. Alright, so back to Seagull. Yeesh. So I gotta figure out where to put him. Lord have mercy. I gotta find some place where he's kind of unobtrusive and out of the way. You know what I'm going to do with Seagull? I'm going to put him out here in Iowa. I mean, that way, I could maybe march him down, you know, just to defend territory if I need that. Because in combat, in the game, the defender always rolls first. Now, you can reassign or transfer brigadier and major generals if you want to as well, too. You also, at this point, any generals that were wounded, there is a casualty check at the end of each battle. You could bring those generals back into the game. Alright, now the Rebs. Now, of course, the Rebs got a bad break. They only get 4 points. But the good news for them is they get 2 generals. So I want to spend their 4 points probably on infantry, because I'm sure, as you could probably see from the map here, I'm kind of trying to hold in the east as the rebels and block and protect Richmond, Petersburg area. I'm trying to use Jubal Early, who got drawn early, so to speak. It's a little redundant. Lee's bad old man. I'm kind of using him to try and block Meade and maybe even try to counterattack and force Meade back. But he's probably going to need some help, so I'm going to probably have to bring up another general here at some point. And then way out here in the west, I have the Army of Tennessee commanded by Robert E. Lee with John Bell Hood as a subordinate commander. And then I have, I'm not sure who that is out there. I just have him there trying to help secure supply lines. That's Price. Price is out there by Cairo, hanging out to do that. And then, of course, out here I have Beauregard, who's going to have to do something about this situation, because you can see General Thomas started moving south, but then when Lee came up, I started to bring Thomas back. The good news for me is, for the Union, is I have Uncle Billy here to kind of try and block Lee. So that'll be interesting when we get around to that potential fight. So with only 4 points, that's not much. So I'm just going to go ahead and put 4 points down for the Confederacy, and I'll draw their 2 generals. Let's see what we get for generals for the Rebels. Alright, we get, well, I'll put them face down and I'll reveal them to you when I see them. Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, I got brag. That's not good. Although, again, notice brag at his lower level, he starts with a B and then he gets up to C later on. And I have, A.P. Hill, Ambrose Pierce Hill, whose statue I used to drive past every single day on my way to Mechanicsville. Alright, but again, notice Hill, kind of like Hood, he's got a good rating whenever he's a lower commander in A, but then as he gets further up in command, he gets Bs. So, okay, let's see. What do I want to do with these guys? Well, you know what? Early's going to need some help dealing with Meade. So, you know what? A.P. Hill might be a good idea to send out to there to try and reinforce and try to fight him off. So, you know, I'm going to take A.P. Hill and place him here with this troops here. And then I'm going to take Bragg. Oh, gosh, what to do with Bragg? You know what? I'm going to have Bragg just garrison Nolans down there for the time being. Just take a moment here to talk about the map real quick. We'll look here at Georgia. Okay. As you can see, there's spaces with the dashed lines. For inside, the heavier black lines. And, of course, the black lines on the rivers. For borders there, you have minor cities here like Albany. You have capitals, larger cities in the south as well, and it's both sides really. And then you have the fortress cities. Now the fortress cities come with an integral defensive thing there. You can see A2, so you would need to hit that twice to be able to move in and capture Atlanta. And this is a separate space from where Marietta is, Midgeville is, and where Columbus, Georgia is too. So it does touch all the spaces, but it is its own separate space. So if you wanted to get to Atlanta from here, you'd have to have a corps commander to be able to move 2 spaces. Units without a corps commander, or infantry I should say without a corps commander, can only move 1 space at a time. And of course we'll do movement here in a little bit. And then of course we also have some mountains, which do the usual thing. You know, you have to stop when entering them. There's a combat factor, a modifier, I should say, for the defender, etc., etc., etc. Okay. And of course, if you notice, you got the gray, and then you got the Union blue, but then you also have kind of an orangish tint. You have the 3 border states, Missouri, Kentucky, and Maryland, Maryland. Okay. Alrighty. So, I've placed all those. I placed the generals. We've done the recruiting. So now it's time to get into the meat of each turn. Okay. Now, each operation phase, you will have as many operation phases as you have cards. So this particular turn, since it's the winter, we only have 1 card apiece. So that's only going to be 1 operation phase. That's it for both sides. Okay. So both sides would secretly choose a card, and then you would reveal them. So let's reveal the Reb card here. Oh, now the Rebs have a choice too. They can either just do 4. Oh no, they don't have a choice. They have 4 straight up orders with an initiative bonus. Okay. Now, typically, whoever has the higher number, in this case the Rebels do 4 versus 2, would have the initiative. But if somebody had playing a card with an event, which I did with the Yankees, then that side has the initiative. Now, whoever has the initiative can decide who moves first. And basically what you do each turn is you move, and then after everybody moves, both Yankees and Rebels, then you fight your battles. So, since the Yankees have the event that they can play, I'm going to go ahead and decide who should move first. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm trying to see here, take a look at everything and see if I can find a way to get you guys an example of a battle. I could just fight a big battle. You know what? I think that's what I'll do. I'll fight a big battle in one of those 2 places. That way I can show you how the reinforcement works and stuff like that too. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and let the Union play first, and then we'll let the Rebs go second. Okay. And again, I'm not saying any of this is ideal. I'm just saying that this is what I'm doing to kind of demonstrate and show the game. Because one thing I like about this game too is, you know, if you get in a position where it's like, oh shoot, things went badly, like my first, the summer of 1861, the Union got 3 cards with only 1 command on them, which of course means you don't get to move around much. Hence, by the way, that's how the rebels were able to organize things, promote Lee, and invade Illinois, which is critical because those spaces, if the rebels occupy those spaces, then that increases the Union war weariness track, which is a feature I like of this game too. And if that ever goes above 20, this goes up to negative 20, then it's game over. The Confederacy has won. The Union has said no mas, and that's that. Also, if, however, you don't reach that point, at the end of whatever scenario you're playing, you subtract the war weariness. So, for example, if you say at the end of the scenario you have 30 Union victory points and the war weariness is on 10, you subtract and you only have 20 Union victory points. That, of course, if nobody gets an automatic victory, which is basically either pushing the war weariness block off the track, breaking the Confederacy, dropping them to a point where they basically they just don't have anything left. They don't have any resources left, anything like that. Or, of course, the Rebs occupying Washington, D.C. for an incomplete turn, a seasonal turn, being able to control it. So, in other words, Union has a chance to kick their dupas out if they need to. Okay? All right, the blocks you see on the cards, I just use those myself just to help me remind me how many orders there are, and then as I use them, so I pull them off the card. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to issue 2 orders over here in Northern Virginia. The Battle of Fredericksburg actually went in the Union favor. So I'm going to go ahead and drive these 2 guys, which is McDowell, and I forget who I brought out from the west to reinforce McDowell. I'm going to send them down into here. Now, the first unit I choose to go in, of course, is the initiating unit. The second unit then will be reinforcements, and that will be important for the battle. So let me go ahead, and one thing I did talk to the designer about was making some of the spaces bigger, especially for the east. And he's worked on that. He's made the map larger. So that's cool. He also said that last I spoke to him, and I emailed him the other day, let him know I got this back on the table and such. Last I spoke to him too, he was also thinking about maybe just self-publishing this or letting people download as for a fee of a print and play. So I'll let you know when I know more details. I'll put stuff in the comments section about where he's headed with all that. But I know he was looking into the idea of seeing, having Blue Panther print the components, print on demand thing, kind of like Hollandspiel does. Okay, so I did that, and then I've got my surprise attack. Now, the Rebs have 4 orders here. So maybe just for the fun of it, let me think about this for a second. They've got 4 orders. So let me do, let's see. I don't really want to promote any rebel generals per se, because then we get into bigger things. But just for the fun of it, I might also initiate another battle and also show you some different types of movement. Now, one thing that's interesting about this game is each side does have rail capacity. You can move so many strength points per turn, 3 at a clip. So, like, for example, if, like, the Union on 1862 has 8 points they can move, you can only move 3 at a clip using 1 order to do that. But you can do it any combination up to 8 if you want. However, interesting thing is you can use the rail lines to reinforce a battle area. So kind of keep that in mind. You cannot enter enemy territory with rail movement, but you can reinforce it. A situation that you've got going on. So, just for the fun of it, let's see. Alright, for the fun of it, let's do this. I'm going to issue 1 order to the Army of Tennessee, and we're going to drive up here and attack Uncle Billy. Now, if I hadn't issued the Union orders first, then I could have reinforced this battle and fought back there. Then I'll use the second order. I'll move Price up to here to kind of reinforce and keep track of all that there. So that's my second order. And let's see, what should I do for my third order? You know what? I'm going to take my third order, and I'm going to send old Beauregard, who can command 2 corps, because he's up to being a 2-star general, a major general. I'm going to leave 1 guy behind, and I'm going to go ahead and go 1 and then 2 here into Fayetteville, and he'll stop there. And then, let's see. Now, I could take A.P. Hill and move him by rail to reinforce the battle in Northern Virginia, but I think what I'll do instead is I'll take A.P. Hill and I'll run him on this rail line through Columbia, South Carolina, up here through Florence, and notice it goes into the space here at Raleigh, so I'll send him up to reinforce early if Meade decides he's going to try and push some more from there, and that'll be the final order. Okay, now that everybody's done, now we, of course, we will have our battles. Now, battles are determined by the side with the initiative. So we got 2 battles here in the winter of 1862. It's a little unusual, but I mean, you know, hey, you know, it's a seasonal thing. And of course, you know, Fredericksburg, Stones River. I think enough said there. All right, so let's go ahead and let's start out over here in Northern Virginia. All right, so we have, and I usually use something to mark where the battle is. So I'm going to use this red block here. So we've got the 2 commanders in Northern Virginia here. We've got Hardee and we've got Johnston. Now, they both have a B on them, which means they can go ahead and take their C-class units and turn them into B units for this battle. And then, of course, we have Irvin McDowell, who moved in, along with, let's see, who is that? With McDowell. McDowell has with him Ord, okay, who started out in the Western Theater. Now, McDowell only has a C, so it's not much help as far as that goes. And Ord, since he moved into there as the reinforcement individual, he won't be able to fight until the 2nd turn of the battle. Okay. Now, I could use my events that are on my cards here. For the Union, I have a surprise attack, select a battle, where all friendly units have the advantage in their class in the first round of combat. So I'll have to save that. Initiative bonus, increase combat class of 1 block, but I don't really need to do that here. So we're going to save both of those for another battle. So let me move you over here to the battle board. And let's zoom in with the battle board. Now you can see again it's a little Axis and Allies-ish, but it's a little more complicated than that. Each battle can only last 2 rounds. Units that are commanded by a general, which of course we have that situation here, they can go ahead. Let me slide him behind. I just like to put the generals behind. That's just my own preference. Units commanded by a general can do 2 rounds of combat. Units that are not commanded by a general are only allowed to fight for 1 round of combat. Okay? And of course, defender, you defend with everything that's there, and of course, terrain, etc. Now, we don't have to worry about terrain here because we're basically talking about Charlottesville and all, heading out towards Charlottesville before you get to the Shenandoah. That's that space, because the next space over on the map has Stanton at it. So, of course, then we're getting into the mountains. Defender always gets to fire first in each class, and hits are applied immediately. And again, I'm not saying this was the smartest idea in the world, because you can probably see right now that, you know, the Rebs have a bit of an edge here. But again, I'm doing this just to demonstrate and show you guys how the game works, how the mechanics work, etc., etc. Okay, so here we go. All right, so the Rebels will get to fire first, and each combat block has a value on it. So the infantry are C2, which means they normally would be Class C units, but in this case, because we have the 2 generals with a B, they promote them to Class B units, and of course the 2 is 2 or less. So basically you need a 1 or a 2 to hit. All right, so we got all these guys here. Let's see if they can get any kind of hits here as they're defending the Old Dominion state. And they rolled 1 hit. They did get a 2. Now, losses are applied immediately, so McDowell's unit will go down from 4 to 3. Now, McDowell will get his chance to open fire here. And again, 2 or less because he doesn't, you know, McDowell was, I don't even know if you want to call him solid, but anyway. Okay, well, the Union also got a 2, So they also landed one hit, and we'll take it out of Hardy's unit. Okay, now we can do a second round of battle. Now, of course, before you fire with your units, you may choose to retreat if you wish to. At the end of a battle, if the defender is still there, if the defender has not retreated, he's not eliminated, then the attacker will have to retreat to the space he came from. Now, of course, since we're in the second round of battle, reinforcement units can now fight. So now Ord will be here, but again, the defender gets to fire first, so the Rebs will still get to fire first here in the second round of battle, and they've got 3. So let's see what they get this time. They got a single 2. Okay, so I'll take another hit out of McDowell because, of course, I'd rather Ord has his full strength when he's fired. So Ord has a strength of 4, but again, he's just 2 because you can see he has a B0. Again, if he had a B1, you'd be able to fire at 3 or less. Oh, figures. I rolled 2 5s and 2 4s, so you know what that means. No hits. All right, McDowell will now try to roll with his 2. And he did get a 1. Okay? And what I'll do here is, well, I'll have to reduce these guys for the purposes of this demonstration. Now, this is the second round of battle. The Rebs are still there. They didn't retreat, which means the Union's going to have to. Now, there is a rule the designer has right now, which he calls recovery. And basically, any unit in the battle that loses a step can get 1 step back for it. So basically, he's thinking that's like, you know, people that ran from the battlefield, maybe stragglers who never made it to the battlefield, etc., etc. It's one of the rules we've discussed and debated. He does feel strongly about it because it is siegeable turns, but there's also the optional rule. He's going to make an optional rule where you don't have to do the recovery if you don't want to. So basically what that means is that'll bring these guys back both up to 2, and McDowell will get 1 of his steps back as well. All right, now at the end of the battle, you check mortality of each general, and the mortality is based on their rank. So here on the Confederate side, Hardy only has 1 star, so he could be a casualty on a roll of 10 through 12. So let's see if anything happens to him. It's an 8, so he's fine. Now Johnston has 2 stars, which of course means it's only an 11 or 12. Ooh, it almost was an 11. It was spinning, and at the last second it bumped aside and flipped to a 2. All right, let's check the Union side. Ord is only a 1-star general, so we're looking at possible 10 through 12 casualties. And he is fine. And McDowell has 2 stars, so he, again, will be 11 or 12. Oh, and he's an 11. This one goes to 11. All right, so when there is a casualty like this, then you have to roll to find out the severity of that casualty. And it's basically a 6-sided die. So you roll the number, and basically 1 through 5 is the number of turns that general's out. They've been wounded. Obviously, the higher the number, the more severe the wound. If you roll a 6, they're killed and removed from the game. McDowell only has a 1, so he'll be able to come back next turn in the spring of 1862. Which of course now leaves Ord over here, but he can only command 1 of these corps because he only has 1 star. So now I have a bit of a problem. I'll have to figure out if I want to use, try to promote him next turn. Now the rebels, of course, held their position, so we'll move them back to the Richmond-Petersburg area, well, to the Charlottesville area, outside of the Richmond-Petersburg area, which of course is where I actually live. That area there, and we're done with the battle. So that's how a battle works. Okay, now let's do a second battle here, and then we'll wrap up the turn. That'll give you a good idea of how the game works without, you know, making this too long of a playthrough. All right, so the Army of Tennessee is going to attack Uncle Billy in Springfield, and there is a fort. So the Union will have its fort there, which is a Class A unit. Uncle Billy has a B rating, so with his 2 stars. So Uncle Billy's going to bring that Union infantry unit up to the B level, and of course the last one will be a C level here. Now, Since this was an army, the Army of Tennessee, with subordinate commanders, of course there will not be the reinforcements. So that's one of the advantages of building an army. And an army is something that you can do whenever you're doing your operations. You can use an order to create an army, but you must have a 3-star general. And any 3-star general, and this is something you kind of have to be careful of, any 3-star general must command an army. So you have to be careful who you're going to promote to those 3 stars, because again, the Rebs only have 2 armies, and the Union only has 3. So you do have to watch that. Okay. Alright, so let's bring John Bell Hood and Robert E. Lee in here. Now, of course, Hood and Lee are both A-class leaders, so they will bring their guys up there to 1 block to level A, that is commanded. And then, of course, the other one here will be down here, its usual class C. Now, Lee also has a 1 after his A, which of course means that those infantry will hit on 3 or less as opposed to 2 or less. Okay? Alright, so let's start the battle. We got 2 rounds here. The Union fort gets to fire first, but you have to get a 1. So you know what that means. Snake eyes, baby! Oh. 6 and 2, so much for that. Alright, so we'll get John Bell Hood, which of course is famous for commanding his Texans, but he actually was born in Kentucky, by the way. So he, of course, moved them up to A-class, but it didn't improve their combat ability, so they still are trying to get 2 or less. Ooh, and they got a pair of 2s. Ouch, that stings. Alright, I'm going to take 1 out of the fort, and I'll take 1 out of the C-class unit here. Now, Robert E. Lee has his 1 unit here with the 3. And remember, that strength, those guys will actually be 3 or less here. Alright, we got a 5 and a 1, and we got, somebody went rogue. Sorry about the arm. And a 1, so that's 2 5s, or 2 1s and a 5, so that's 2 more hits. Whew. Oh boy. Alright, well I'm going to get rid of the fort then, and I'll drop these guys down. I'm going to see if Uncle Billy can get a bit of a sting on these guys or not. I may have to retreat. Yikes. That's not good. I don't want to retreat, but I'm going to have a choice. Alright, so let's see. Uncle Billy here does not have a combat factor, so we're hoping for a bunch of 1s and 2s, because we have a strength of 4, so hold on to your butts. Well, we got 1, which is better than 0. And the Rebs will take it out of this one, of course. And of course, that one still gets to fire. Oh. Oh, that's painful. That's really, really painful. What just happened? Oh. Wow. Dang it. I was hoping for a better battle than that, but I thought I had Uncle Billy reinforced pretty well, but that don't look too good. Alright. Dang. I'm gonna have to, yeah, okay. I'm gonna lose this guy and drop him down to a strength of 3. Ouch. Okay, now the Rebs could retreat if they wanted to. That's funny. Alright, so they're not obviously not going to, and of course since they have Class A units, we gotta hope that Uncle Billy survives this so he can retreat. So hang on, here we go. So John Bell Hood's men are first. Oh shoot, they got 1 hit. So that's the 1 hit, okay. So Uncle Billy's down to 2. And now here comes the men led by Robert E. Lee. Oh, whew, that was close. Okay, so that was 1 hit. But if it had been 2 hits, Uncle Billy would be eliminated from the game. Yikes. Alright, now, Uncle Billy's turn, so Uncle Billy is going to fight, run away, and fight another day. That really killed the Union, not getting those early orders. That really stung. Alright, so the Confederates have a resounding victory. And we forgot we got to check leader casualties, so we'll start with Hood. He's 10 through 12. He's perfectly fine. And Lee, since he's a lieutenant general, only boxcars will waylay him. And quite frankly, I don't usually wish ill on anybody, but I am really, really hoping for boxcars here, because if I don't get boxcars with him, I'm going to be in serious trouble here in the spring of 1862. So here we go. Keep your fingers crossed. Now, provided I can get both dice to fall in the cup at the same time. Let's try that again. Ooh, that was a 10. So close, but close only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, and tactical nuclear warfare. Now we're going to check on Uncle Billy, who's a 2-star general. He's an 8, so he's okay. Alright. Oh shoot, I forgot to use my event. That was dumb of me. I should have used that for Uncle Billy to hit first in his class, but oh well. Okay. Whoops. Actually, I could have used that for the rebel one to roll with a B too. Uncle Billy could have been in bigger trouble. So, part of the dangers of playing solitaire. That's life. Okay. So, we've done that because we only had one card, so we're only going to get through one of those. And now we get to check supply. Everybody's in supply. They can trace supply lines back. In the game, there's also a certain amount of garrison markers that each side has that they can put down. You can see the rebels invading Western Kentucky and doing a very bang-up job of things. I got to find a way to I don't know if I'm going to be able to. I'm almost going to need to pour everything out there and then try to get... Yeah, I'm going to have to try to find a way to get... Thomas has a problem though, doesn't he? No, actually he's okay, because I can actually trace supply to Kansas. Okay, well that's good news. But I'm going to have to get an army command next turn in the spring. Otherwise it's going to be over. It's just bad luck in this game. But again, part of the thing I like about this game is it's so easy to reboot. Even when you do get bad luck, it's not the end of the world. Alright. So let's see who has to place their newly recruited units first. Alright. So, 2 and a 1. So the Rebs have to go first. The Rebs have their 4 steps. So, I mean, you know what it is. You reinforce success, right? Okay, so I'm going to send 2 steps up to Robert E. Lee in the Army of Tennessee. And then, what am I going to do with the other 2 steps? Let's take the other 2 steps and we'll reinforce outside of Richmond. Just in case the Union decides to get any interesting. Well, maybe I should reinforce Jubal early because that's true. McDowell got wounded. So the situation, yeah, you know what? Let's reinforce... let's reinforce one of Jubal Early's blocks because he's able to command 2. He's a 2-star general. And then we'll reinforce A.P. Hill's block up to 2 also. So that's the 4 points. Okay. Now the Union, boy, I got serious problems here. I got to figure out where I'm going to put this fort. I guess I'll put it in Decatur because I can put 1 unit in a minor city. So I'll do that, or maybe I should put it in Perrin. I'll put it in Decatur. And then, of course, I have, what do I have, 9 steps to reinforce with? Yeah, I got 9 steps. Okay, so with these 9 steps, let's see what I'm going to do. First thing we'll do is we'll reinforce Uncle Billy to the max. So that's 3 steps. So 9 minus 3 is 6. So I got 6 steps left. And since I have this supply route, I can reinforce Thomas. Well, Thomas is already at 4. I just have to get him back across the river, which is going to be no small feat. Of course, then again, if I could, that's true. If I get the higher card here in the spring, that's true. If I get a higher card in the spring, I could have him cross the river and strike here and cut Lee's supply line. So, okay. But I still have 6 strength points if I want. Now, next turn, I get 3 more generals. So you know what I'm going to do? I am going to place, up here in Peoria, I'm going to place a 4 strength unit. So 6 minus 4 leaves me with 2. And hope I get a strong general there. And then I'll try and promote Uncle Billy early. And then build the army of, Well, probably the Army of the Tennessee. So I got 2 strength points left. What do I do with them? He's at maximum strength. But I could throw another block there at Evansville of 2 strength points. And then I could get another general because I get 3 next turn. Plus Siegel comes back. Or McDowell comes back, rather. So actually I got 4 generals next turn. And then I could try and cut some of those supply lines. Okay, let's do that. I'll just go ahead and we'll build the 2-step unit here in Evansville. And that's that. Okay. Now, you can cross-level forces, which basically means that if you want to, you can redistribute strength points among blocks in the same area. So like, for example, if you have one block with 3 and you want both of them to have 2, and one has 1 rather, and one has 3, then you could go ahead and transfer the 1 and drop them both down to 2. That's what the cross level means. Okay, victory check. Well, we don't have to worry about points just yet for that. However, now that Lee is in Springfield, Illinois, that gives him, that increases the war weariness track, which is a very bad thing right now, because again, if that thing gets pushed to 20, thanks for playing. Stick a fork and you hear some nice party gifts. Turtle wax for a tinier turtle. Just check one thing real quick here. Okay, so now they hold, wow, they hold 4 points worth. So the war weariness track is all the way up to 10 already. Yikes. I am in deep, deep caca. Alright. Well, better hope the spring goes better. And then that's it. Then you go back to the first step of cards for the next seasonal turn. And that's a complete turn of the game. So then I'll be ready to roll here in the spring of 1862, where everybody will be getting 2 cards. So, okay. So again, that shows you the game here. Gives you an idea how it works. Yeah, I like it for the reasons I mentioned already. Yeah, you can have some instances where things get a little crazy. But again, if you follow the historical route with leaders and when they show up and stuff, that can also be a big deal. 2, not being able to promote generals more than 1 rank in a turn is also big, because if you start with a 1-star, you're still going to need at least 2 turns to promote them. So it does take time. And again, you have to be careful who you're promoting, who you're putting where and stuff, because if you do demote them, it does impact the war weariness track, depending on which side you are, either plus or minus, depending on who's being moved around. So anyway, I like this game. This has rocketed up to I would say a tie with my other favorite game that I discovered late last year also, which is CSA, which right now is not really available, readily available, and the map's too flippin' small. That one also puts a heavy emphasis on leaders. It's a Robert Madison design, but holy crackers, that map is tiny. I think of the genie like in Aladdin, itty bitty living space. So the rumor is, I hope it's true, because I would pick it up because I like this game, but I also like the other one too. The rumor is that Compass Games is supposed to be doing a new edition of CSA, hopefully later this year, and that would be great. But this one is definitely superseded some of my other games. You know, I have For the People and the Civil War, the old Victory Games one. I used to have the U.S. Civil War from GMT, but I didn't care for that, so I actually traded that away for, I don't even know what I traded it away for. Something different. So anyway, so this is And the War Came. That's the working title of the game. And again, I will keep you posted, especially when I hear back from Mr. Pink. I'll see what he has to say about where he's at working on this and such. But that was the last thing he mentioned to me, was basically trying to sell it on his own rather than going through a game company and stuff like that. So we'll see. But I will say I really, really do enjoy the game. I think it's very cool, and it's very solo friendly. So, all right. Well, I have no idea when the next time I'll visit with y'all will be. Who knows? I mean, it's been like 6 months or something, 7 months. I don't know, 6, 7 months, 8 months. I don't even remember anymore. But if something comes my way, or I find something that's really cool, I will definitely share it with you if I can. Because again, my time is fairly limited, and it does take time and effort to do the videos and such. So anyway, I hope you're all well. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. And again, if you have interest in the game, express it in the comments below. And when I hear from Mr. Pink, we can kind of go from there. So, but again, I do want to specify that, I was given this game for free to go ahead and be a playtester for it. So, which I mentioned, of course, at the beginning of this video as well. Alright, so, as always, this is Tim Korchnite from Bones Wargaming, saying thanks for watching, and, I'm going to go off the deep end here for a second. I will leave you with this quote. Somewhere down the road, our roads are going to cross again. And I'm going to cut it there because it's from a Barry Manilow song, so we're not going to get into the next part of this. Yeah. Alright, don't ask. My mother loved Barry Manilow, so when I was growing up as a kid in the late 70s and early 80s, I heard a lot of Barry Manilow on the big old stereo with the 8-track player. How about that? No less, too. So, yeah, I know more Barry Manilow than I probably should, but hey, whatever. Yeah. Hey, his music brings happiness to people. He's not bothering anybody. Who cares? Alright, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you again at some point in the forever future. Thanks again for watching, and have a good one. Talk to you later.